Hi, I'm Manuente Reme, Icheb from Star Trek Voyager and the executive producer of the Circuit Urbiesa, and you're listening to Kneel Before Pod.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello, and welcome to another wondrous edition of Kneel Before Pod. I'm your host Craig McKenzie, and I've pulled together my own Justice League to discuss the latest entry in the DC Expanded Universe, Wonder Woman. With me are Angus.
Hello.
And Natalie.
Hi.
Hello. So that's
Hi.
The Justice League being introduced. We're the Z team. I don't know. Is there a letter lower than Z? Possibly in Kryptonian.
What alphabet are we using?
Omega.
No, Omega's like the end of times. We're not that good.
I don't know what that means, but okay, huh?
Yeah. We're not good enough to end the world with our chat. So, yeah. Anyway, derailed already. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've...
Bring on the pep talk.
Bring on the pep talk, yeah. So, Wonder Woman, we've all seen it, and we'll kick off with our initial spoiler-free thoughts. Natalie, as the token woman on this podcast about a female-led superhero movie, you can go first. Ladies first.
No, you always do this. Like, whenever there's a movie that we've watched and it's got a female in it, you're like, alright, Natalie, you're up.
I don't know if that's ever happened before.
Yes, it has! Star Wars! It's the exact same.
Well, I'm always going
to... Jedi.
Haven't all the movies we've talked about had women in them?
Well, anyway.
Yeah, you should really be hosting this one.
Because I'm a lassie.
And editing it.
No.
I'm always gonna ask you for your opinion, otherwise why are you here, so...
Hirsch? Right, that's it, mate.
Yeah.
No, okay. Honestly, so no spoilers. What are my thoughts?
No spoilers.
So the outfits are pretty cool. And how do you say her name? Is it Gal Gadot or Gadot?
I think it's Gadot.
Gadot.
I think that's how
she's
you pronounce
she's really pretty, so it's nice to watch her on screen. This is so like empowering to women.
Yeah. Feminism.
It's funny how the women on the podcast is talking about the clothes and Gal Gadot's looks. Yeah.
Look, to be honest, did the movie have much else going for it?
I don't know, did it?
That's my spoiler-free opinion. I didn't go in with any expectation, and I wanted it to be good. So maybe I did. Well, I wanted it to surprise me. But I don't really know much about Wonder Woman, but it was not as good as I thought it might be.
Okay.
Which is really odd, because everyone seems to think that it's awesome.
Yeah, a contrary opinion, and it's interesting that it's on the other gender side, so, we could be unique in that respect.
There's no such thing as other gender here. We accept everything on a wide spectrum.
I didn't read your review about it, but did you like it?
I did read your review.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
You read it.
Did you like it?
Did you like my review or the film?
No, but did you like the movie?
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I think.
Oh my god! I cannot wait to find out why.
I think DC has had problems establishing tone in the past or establishing something that works for them, and I think this film is possibly the first step towards them actually doing that, actually accomplishing something. And it's. I mean, it looks great. It's very colourful, very bright, very vibrant. There's a few sequences in it that genuinely blew me away. I think Gal Gadot's brilliant in the lead role. I think Chris Pine does a really good job.
He always looks like he's been crying.
It's because he has always been crying.
Or just really tired.
Well, he is at war, you know. He's not had a lot of sleep.
I meant like over all of his movies.
He's always at war and hasn't had a lot of sleep.
He is usually at war.
Oh, well, that's predictable.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised. I had a great time. Angus, what did you think?
I went in with some expectations, and I don't know if it quite lived up to those expectations, because I'd heard good things before going to watch it, but left feeling kind of slightly underwhelmed and questioning a lot about it. There were things I liked about it. I did like that it was, as you say, more colourful than the usual DC kind of sludge fest.
See, when you're saying more colourful, the only scene in my head, right, is the one that's actually used in the trailer, where you don't see all of it, but it's where she's like walking with like this sort of brown, smoky background. So all I'm thinking about are these scenes of like darkness. It's not
what about the island? It was like sunny.
I'm not remembering it. So when she's on like her wee island, it's lovely and colourful, but she's not there for that much of the movie. So
yeah, I think it just kind of felt like there were, distinctive parts of it. It didn't feel, like it flowed all that well for me. Got issues with the ending and stuff to do with some of the World War I setting. Yeah. But I don't want to, give away too much in this pre-spoiler alert
that's
territory.
okay, because we're about to jump straight into spoiler. So,
do you want to host this?
The woman's taking over. Quick.
Yeah, that's it. one superhero movie with a female lead, and Natalie's taking over.
Thanks.
No, enough of the chauvinism, though. Seriously, like it's good
Really
to see.
sharp.
It's good to see this representation happen. And yeah. Okay, so there are some mixed.
He was in it.
There's some mixed opinions among the group, which is interesting. And does anybody have anything spoiler-free to say before we launch into spoilers?
Only that I've just learned who David Thewlis is.
Was it Lupin from Harry Potter? I think he played.
He is in Harry Potter.
Yeah,
he's playing the character Sir Patrick Morgan, who we will discuss for sure.
Yes.
When we get to the next bit.
Yes, because spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he the guy that was in Dragonheart? Or does he just look like the guy? He's not the guy from Dragonheart, is he? I'm like mashing those two up together.
We're getting
Never mind.
nods from the studio audience.
And tonight is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah, they're just all bored and not doing anything. That's it. They're not making any noise. There's no applause.
It's pretty
because
unconventional to have a podcast audience of one, but
yes, studio audience of one. It's great.
Yeah.
He's our biggest fan. He's never listened to a single podcast, so this is his introduction to
and
one.
is this?
And we're saying hi to Kieran tonight. Hi, Kieran.
Also shout out to Paul.
Shout out to listener Paul. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Kate and her boyfriend.
All pre-spoiler alert.
You know who you are.
All dedications come at the end. Thank you.
Sorry, you can edit it. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So, does anybody have anything spoiler-free to say before we jump in? Okay.
No, let's just jump in.
Okay.
Sound the alarm.
Obviously, this film doesn't exist in a vacuum, even though it kind of feels like it does in some cases. This is our fourth film in the DC Expanded Universe, I think we're calling it. Yeah, that's all. So there have been three before this: Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. So
I've only seen one of those.
Right. Okay. So, in your view, what kind of needs fixed about this universe, or what was good? What isn't appealing? What is appealing? Natalie, you've seen one, so you'll be able to comment on that one that you've seen that's other than this one.
It's the Batman and Superman one. So I think we actually podcasted about it.
We did.
Or I came in at the end.
And you cameoed like Wonder Woman did, yeah.
So wait, what am I being asked?
What's kind of good about them? What's bad about them? What needs fixed? What didn't?
They're just generally shit. Like, I don't really know if you can finger point, like, what isn't working for DC, and I wonder if it's just why do they keep making all of these movies?
For the money?
Yes.
Sheer love of money.
The artistic vision, of course.
Yeah. But, like, so I know, because Marvel have such an amazing success with their universe, so obviously DC were like, we're going to do this as well. But it's just, I just don't know, it's just not interesting enough to, like, to see.
I think it definitely suffers compared to what Marvel have managed to do with their cinematic universe.
You talk about colourful. Marvel are colourful. Visually really exciting. And I know, and I actually prefer the darker storylines and things like this, so you would think that I'd be drawn to DC, but they're just, it's not like they're dark, they're just bleak. And not that engaging.
Well, yeah, I'm speaking as someone that's liked all of them up.
You like everything, Craig, so of course you're going to like them.
I don't like everything. Did you not hear about my cease and desist from Fox about Fantastic Four?
Oh yeah. Okay, that one thing.
We can't talk about pending lawsuits on the podcast.
That's it. I'm still dodging lawyers' letters, so you know.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Right, so I'm speaking as someone that enjoyed them, except Suicide Squad. I thought that was horrendous. You know, I like Man of Steel, and Batman v Superman I think is flawed, but I enjoy it. The one consistent thing I don't like is the muted colour palette. I think it's pretty dull to look at. You know, everything's grey. Even Superman's suit, which is supposed to be vibrant and blue and red, is grey. You know, and everything's so morbid and humourless and all that stuff. So.
You're right, humourless. Like, that's actually really important because Wonder Woman tried to introduce it and it is so awkward. Like, it creates really awkward scenes, but, like, not funny awkward, just awkward, like, why did they try and do that?
Yeah.
Like, who's that woman? Who's that British woman that plays the sort of secretary? Who's that?
Lucy Davis.
Yeah, like, I didn't like her at all. I feel really bad. Didn't like her.
Yeah, so I think what needed fixed was the tone. You know, if they're going to settle on like a dark thing, they at least need to make it less teenagery dark. You know, it's like let's have people mope and sit in corners, or you know, and hang around in shadowy areas, and we'll call it dark. I think they needed to really commit to something, and I don't think they've quite committed to something yet, but I feel like they're kind of on the track of committing to something now. So in terms of what was good about it, I like how Man of Steel did the kind of origin of Superman, making him kind of really lost and really lacking in any kind of purpose. I like that. Unfortunately, Batman v Superman didn't further that too much, which is a shame because they're really onto something there. Because I like the idea of him.
I think they just always try to do. They just always try to do too much. Like, it just feels like, even this one, it just felt like they tried to get too much in, and then the ending just meant that it was really rushed, but nothing really happened for like the first hour and a half.
I feel like they're just trying to kind of get towards Justice League and doing anything they can to just sort of steer it in that direction, and doesn't really feel like it's coming together organically. I also don't think that Suicide Squad feels like it's part of the same universe. Obviously the Batman v Superman and Wonder Woman entries all kind of link up at the moment, but yeah, I just don't feel like Suicide Squad felt like it was part of the same universe, really.
It doesn't. I mean, it throws like references at you left, right, and centre.
Yeah, but you can have a reference, but if it doesn't feel like it's part of the universe, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel anyway like, you know, all the Marvel movies have this kind of through line that you can see that they're all part of the same story, overarching story.
That's because they've always got the things at the end that say you're looking for that blue cube.
And I know that DC have to, you know, be careful to, you know, forge their own path with it as well, and they can't just be seen to be aping Marvel at every turn. But again, Marvel have been there and done it, and DC are usually going to be seen as the second best when it comes to establishing this.
Do we want to talk about Wonder Woman? Because I feel like...
Who?
No, we're getting to that. I just wanted to kind of establish a bit of context about the universe that this thing's in, because I actually think this film more or less stands on its own, which is great. I think it's...
What Wonder Woman does?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, outside of a reference to, Bruce Wayne at the beginning and end, it's bookended by that. I think, other than that, I mean, you could cut those scenes and the film wouldn't actually change. So, you could start it from the point where she, I guess, thinks back, and then you could get on with the story, and, you could cut the bookending stuff. And I think the bookending stuff is just to remind you that, by the way, she's going to be seen in a later film. And it's an okay way to do it.
And also that she doesn't age.
Yes.
Or doesn't appear to age.
Yes, or ages a lot
the trailer
slower,
for Justice League played before the film.
Did it?
Yeah.
I didn't even pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Did I?
I don't know, I can't really say if you did or didn't.
Yeah. So, this film had a bit of a unique setting in some ways, as in it's a period piece. It's set during World War One, it feels unique in the sense that we don't see an awful lot of World War One in movies, actually. It's normally World War Two, which that gets all the press. But so I was immediately drawn to the setting because it felt unfamiliar to me, because I've not experienced a lot of the Great War in cinema.
Craig, I love how it's like opposite days for me, because I feel the complete opposite than you for this.
Have you seen a lot of World War One movies?
No, but I just thought World War One and World War Two, like the fact that it's set in any of those periods where the Germans are bad, so then we know what year it is. I just feel like that has been done so much, and if you look at Captain America, his origin story, that's in one of the wars. Like, I don't feel like it's unique at all. I feel like they seem to all originate as a response from war, so all of the origins are set in that time period, and it's really I've definitely seen enough of it, to be honest. Definitely. So it's opposite day, because you obviously don't feel the same way as I do.
Angus, you had an opinion about the setting before we were allowed to talk about it.
I think, despite the fact that it's supposed to be World War One, a lot of the sort of German imagery is kind of Nazi-esque. Okay, there aren't the usual kind of hallmarks in there, but it didn't feel very the sort of Luffendorf and etc. Didn't really feel all that distinct from maybe a Hydra baddie that you'd see in a Marvel movie.
Did you call him Luffendorf?
Yeah.
Ludendorff.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And then there was something I found kind of a bit, it made me feel uneasy watching the trench warfare stuff, because I've kind of spoken to a couple of people about this, and I can't really explain exactly why I felt this way, but I think with the World War II settings and with even Vietnam settings that you see in some superhero movies, they're almost so familiar that they can be generic enough that they can be the backdrop for superheroes to be running around and using their powers and things, and it's become so familiar that it's acceptable almost, whereas I found that the trench warfare stuff was so kind of
like the amputees and everything.
It was so of that war that it felt a bit kind of jarring and a bit, it was strange to see people in a superhero setting taking part in that sort of style of war, and I don't know, it just gave me a strange sort of feeling watching it.
But isn't it good if it's conjured some sort of feeling
good,
like this?
It's obviously good to see something a bit different than the norm, but I don't know, I just felt there was something kind of insensitive about the way it was portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't find that. I thought there was kind of I thought they did really well at kind of showcasing the sort of horrors of war, and
it's a 12A, it's a 12A though. Like, should they really be showcasing?
Well, I mean, there's only so far they can go with that, but then the important thing was that Diana was seeing all of this for the first time. She was seeing the effect of war kind of raging across the world, and she's essentially the audience perspective, because she is entering this world for the first time. And I think the fact that it's World War One helps with that, because it was certainly unfamiliar to me, so in terms of seeing a lot of it. So the fact that it was unfamiliar to her as well, I was able to kind of put myself in her shoes in a way and be like, and almost see it through the way that she was seeing it, which was just, this is horrific, how is this allowed to happen? You know, it's and I think they did a really good job.
Well, they do give her a lot of opportunities to voice her opinion on how horrific it is, you know, like, she talks a lot about, she has like that moment where she doesn't really know what to do, whether she should save humanity or not, and then it becomes very Fifth Element. But I don't know, like, I do agree with Gus, like, there's something about it. However, you both seem to think that it's kind of unique that it's set during this war, but I just saw it as set during a war where the Germans are bad, and we've seen this all before.
Although, to counter my own point, it reminded me an awful lot of the first Captain America movie.
That's what I said.
Well,
like, I mean, the origins are set, like, because all the comics were written to give people suffering through war, like, a hero to look up to, or someone that would, you know, that they could think could save them should anything bad happen. And so I understand, like, when we're having these movies made, that they have to honour the origins, but it's like, do we need to see it again? Like, it's not original.
Well, I mean, I think originality's, you know, a kind of open topic, and I think it's hard for one of these films to be truly original because they're all derivative of something else. And
they were written like 100 years ago. Yeah.
But the reminder I had of Captain America was in terms of how the film is structured. What you've got is, you know, in the first Avenger, you've got Captain America running around with his kind of squad of soldiers, the Howling Commandos, and you've got a similar setup here. It's like Wonder Woman running around with, I forget what they actually called them, but there was a name for them.
I did not enjoy her little comrades, like... was not a huge fan of them either.
But I mean, I think that was kind of unavoidable because, you know, it is a period superhero piece, and I actually think this film is better than the first Avenger because it feels, certainly the middle point where she's in the war feels a bit more deliberate, rather than in first Avenger. I often find it's trying to rush to the end because it has to, because he has to be frozen in time for the Avengers, and it suffered in that respect. But I feel like this film took its time a bit more, like that scene where they went to the Belgian village. I thought that was a really good little oasis moment in the film that let you spend time with the characters.
I was like, when are we getting to the action? Because we've been watching this for an hour and 40 minutes and nothing has happened.
Yeah, I think that the middle section and the final section were both kind of played out too long.
I feel like I get what they were trying to do with that scene in the little village, but at that point I was so tired and bored and trying to wake Gus up, who's fallen asleep beside me, that I was like, can we please get to the point of the movie?
Well, that was after the best sequence in the film, actually. That was after the No Man's Land sequence, which I thought was excellent.
Actually, to be honest, like, that I think was one of my favourite scenes. I thought it was great, it looked visually really beautiful, and it was quite a powerful moment that she just goes fearlessly out there. The guys are like, you know, what is she doing? And she just goes out there, and I really enjoyed that scene. But again, like, it took so long to get there. Everything feels like it was so, like, laboured. Like, oh.
I liked how the scene looked. I liked how it was shot. I liked how it was presented.
Yeah.
I liked that part of it, but that was another part that kind of sat a bit uneasily with me, was that there was this, you know, massive stalemate for 4 years of war, and then there was one big kind of push, and it seemed like it just made light of the kind of, I don't know, it was just something about that.
I don't think it made light of it. I don't think it made light of it at all.
I don't know, it just, to me, it felt as if there was a strange kind of, you know, all it takes is we just all go over the top, and then that's us sort of broken through one enemy line, and that's a big battle over. It didn't really convey the sort of quite how
It's not a war. It's not a movie though to be showing you how that happened or whatever. It's a superhero movie.
Or it's not how to conduct trench warfare manual.
No.
Okay, right, got that.
Yeah.
If you want that, watch like an actual war movie that's going to try and depict all of that. This is a superhero movie. They spent ages on that.
All quiet on the Wonder Woman front.
I wanted them out.
Or the last episode of Blackadder.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
I really liked that scene, and so even though it took a long time to get there, part of the build up definitely worked. Like there was a wee bit of tension there. You didn't really know what was going to happen. Really enjoyed it. It's supposed to be uncomfortable because it's a world war.
Yeah. I loved the conversation she has with Steve Trevor just before she goes over the top as well. You know, where she talks about, we have to go there, we have to stop this. This is ridiculous, and he kind of outlines the actual the stakes. You know, he tells her exactly what's going on. It's like these people have been here a year and they haven't moved at all, and
an inch or anything. Yeah,
going over the top. It's not possible. It's like not humanly possible. And then she's obviously not human, so just goes for it. And yeah, it's almost that kind of wish fulfillment. You know, as in what would it have been like if we did have superheroes during the war, and like Captain America existed during World War II, and so did Superman. So like, I'm talking about in comics, and people were kind of inspired by that. But also they were painfully aware of the fact that Superman couldn't just fly over to Germany and take out Hitler, you know, because he doesn't exist. So there's kind of that, but it's that wish fulfillment. Here's what it might have been like if she had existed.
I suppose it also is quite good in that part where he'd already told her that, you know, it was something about how his father had taught him to either be the guy who sits and does nothing or actually does something about it. And at that point, she was making the decision to take action rather than inaction.
Take action. Yeah, and she felt that she could do something, so she did do something, and also, you know, I didn't have an issue with it because I didn't feel like she was winning the war. You know, she was dealing with a very specific thing. You know, they were dealing with this little comic book plot that's going on in the middle of the real war. So there's this experimental compound that's more lethal than anything ever discovered before. So her job for this film is to deal with that and nothing else. So it's not as if she's going...
Wonder Woman's job is that?
Yeah.
Wonder Woman's job the whole time is to find Ares. Her job isn't to go to the compound and shut it down. It's to find elusive Ares, and as soon as he dies, everything's fine. Yeah, it's not to go to the compound or anything. She only goes there because that's where Chris Pine wants to go.
Yeah, but on a mechanical level, that's that's the plot. You know, the plot is that's her part in the war, and it's a part of the war that didn't really exist. But it's not as if she's trying to storm, you know, the Reichstag or however you pronounce it, and take out the Kaiser. She's only there to do this kind of small thing. The rest of the war is still raging on around them, and the impact they have is important in terms of they deal with something that could have tipped the scales in the Germans' favour, but also it's not important in terms of stopping the war in totality.
Well, I thought the idea was to stop the war.
Well, that was what she did, and we'll kind of get onto that about her kind of naivety as a character, but I love that. I think that sequence is kind of the centre point of the film, and I don't think it's equalled after that point in terms of action, but it's still great, and I loved it. And it kind of brings us on to tone a bit. I quite like the tone of this because it was still bleak, as in they're still at war, but there's an optimism about it, and the optimism again comes from Diana's perspective. She's, you know, she thinks she can win. She thinks that people are better than she's physically seeing from them. And she's kind of out to prove that. And I liked that there was a lightness to it without actually, you know, without trivialising the conflict at the same time.
A lightness to it? How do you see a lightness to it?
Well, there's a lightness to her. You know, she's naive, she's learning, she's, you know, poking fun at the kind of the way the world works, but there's still this...
I don't know if she's poking fun at it. She seems really distressed by how the world outside of her little island seems to work. Like, she really struggles with how people can be so...
Well, there's things like she tries on clothes and she's like, how do you fight in this? And she tries to get through a revolving door with her sword and shield, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's what cute, I mean by the lightness to it.
Yeah, that was cute, but it felt like a long time was spent her just trying on clothes.
It was an interesting kind of, you know, fish out of water type setup. but I don't think it's anything particularly new. You know, you've seen it in Thor before. You've seen the kind of fantastical setting, which I thought was, I thought that the stuff in the island to begin with was quite good, but I do think it's been done better in Asgard. I think Thor Coming to Earth was done better in that film than Wonder Woman discovering
ice cream
or dresses.
Like, they didn't push it far enough. I feel like if they were going to bother with any of that at all, why did she not find more things marvelous, like cars, for instance? Like, why did she not, like, she finds ice cream amazing, she finds trying on dresses like really interesting, and she questions a corset being like, armor. But I feel like, why did they not do that more, or not have it at all? Because the level that they had it just didn't really work for really, I think, letting through humour or that sort of naive wonderment. Like, it just sat at a really awkward level that I don't feel worked while watching the movie.
I mean, there was some kind of marvelling at different things. It was when she got to London in the first place, and London does not look appealing at all in this film. It's like during the Industrial Revolution, so it's what you've got is people inhaling like smoke and from factories and things. So she looks at it and she
says, looks like horrid or something.
Yeah, this is hideous, and Steve is like, yeah, it's not for everyone. And and that was good, because it kind of highlighted because it would have been so easy for her to get to civilization and be like, wow, this is like nothing I've ever seen. And instead she's like, this isn't good as good as home.
Well, it's because everyone's dream back.
It's because it's not, that fantasy island looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And I did like the island stuff.
And they had horses.
They did?
How did they have horses on the island?
Because the gods left them horses.
Were they female horses?
I would imagine so, yes.
Right.
Yeah. They're ageless, like the Amazonians. They don't age.
Ageless female horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're Amazonian horses. So, I think the film did well with the various, with its tone and how that related to the setting and how that related to the characters, because it would have been quite easy for them to either to go too bleak and have her be cynical, but the fact that she's really positive about changing things and accomplishing her mission while being naive as well to a massive degree.
But don't you think really it's all just one big slide from her home at the beginning? Is it a nice positive sunny place, and it just kind of diminishes into the sort of fog of war, and then they in battle, which is again what you just get to standard superhumans knocking lumps out of each other.
Well, I have my views on the end battle, and I'll definitely get to them.
When I think about it like that, though, I just see it as this kind of sliding scale of. I think that's probably how I viewed it as well. I enjoyed it at the beginning, and then it just kind of dropped off and kept dropping as it got towards this inevitable punch up.
God, the fight scene at the end is so awful. Like, I don't know why movies always seem to have one fight too many in them, and that one especially was Wonder Woman. Do not edit that out, because that is what it was. It was shit. Wonder Woman.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't like the end fight scene either, because I was kind of on board with the idea that she goes looking for Ares, and how great would it have been on a thematic level if she didn't find him? So, she has this kind of... She's idealised humankind in her mind. That rhymes. Well, anyway, she has this ideal vision. She has been told that Zeus created them to be good and true and whatever else. She mentions that earlier in the film, and then the whole thing could have been a learning experience for her. She could have learned, actually, they are pretty nasty, they're pretty violent, they're horrible to each other, they're they're self-defeating, they're selfish, etc. And the kind of result could have been her coming to that realisation. And yeah, Ares has actually nothing to do with this. Would have been the best ending for it, because it would have then tied into the fact that she ran away from humanity in Batman v Superman. She mentions she walks away from mankind.
If she hadn't have found him, though, like, she would have looked mental.
Well,
and no one would have believed her.
Well, I mean, she was looking mental throughout the film to everyone she was talking to anyway. You know, she would say to Steve Trevor, right, I want to find Ares, and he's like, well, whatever, come with me. And he just, from his point of view, he just wants the resource of having a superhero to throw at things, I suppose.
He was quite enabling by just saying, "Oh yeah, definitely, you can come along and do that."
He's definitely here. It's fine. Yeah, we'll deal with him. So he's kind of happy to let her go on with her delusion because she's not actually going to stop thinking it anyway. Nothing he says is going to convince her, you know. And
he does tell her quite early on that he doesn't exist. This is just what it's like. Blah blah blah.
And she ignores him, you know, and persistently ignores him.
Well, that's because she's right, though. Like, she's right.
Yeah, but I think it would have been better if she hadn't been right. That would have been more interesting.
Everyone's right until they're proved wrong.
I think what would have been better is if Thulis was not in it at all. I don't mean the character that he plays. I just mean that I feel like they picked the wrong person for that job, and I know that he'll be very happy that he's expanded his CV to include such a new role like that, but it did not work for me at all, and I actually cringed so much because a lot of the scenes that he's in when he's revealed to be the bad guy is awful. Like, they're so awful.
Yeah, I also found it quite funny when it showed that, you know, the aftermath of Zeus casting him out, and he still had his like porn star mustache.
Yeah, he was a bad man.
See, when he makes that like bad, like that, he makes like a suit out of metal or something, and then he scrapes like the metal down his face so he can see out of it. I'm like, why is that even necessary? You're a god. Like, why do you have to fashion yourself some sort of like iron suit?
It was yet another example of invincible people hitting each other.
But it took it too far. It took it too far and made it ridiculous. Like, it was kind of working up until that point, and then from there I was like, I think I laughed. I was just like, this is a joke.
Yeah, by now, why does it always end up this way?
Yeah, and it didn't need to end up that way. And
no.
And I did like some of the kind of realizations that were coming out of it. Like, Diana came to a few different conclusions based on this fight when Ares was telling her, this is what these people are. They don't deserve they don't deserve your help, blah blah blah. And she's like, it's not about deserve. It's about it's about setting an example and things like that. And and the fact that she kind of was almost driven to kill as well once she found out her origin, which was a bit confusing, I suppose. But
I'm still confused by that, to be honest.
Yeah, she's like holding the tank, and then she's not holding the tank, but the idea that she kind of chooses the better way. That's what you kind of supposed to take away from that, and I think that does work. Although I think that it could have been better done without Ares being there. I think it could have had a much more low-key ending.
Presumably, she's already killed quite a few German soldiers along the way.
Did you not think it was quite like reminiscent of Wizard of Oz when they're like
You compare everything to Wizard of Oz.
What?
You compare everything to Wizard of Oz.
Wait, did I do that last time?
You did.
Maybe films need to stop reading Wizard of Oz. But the bit where they like steal the bad guys' like costumes and then like go in as them. I was just thinking, oh. That's all I could think of when I was watching that. I was like, this is so the Wizard of Oz. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know the bit I'm talking about.
Just any scene where any film where they disguise themselves as the enemy.
Well, it's when they take out those bad guys and then they put all the like gas masks and stuff on.
Yeah.
And they've all got the long coats like the guys from Wizard of Oz.
I thought you meant the bit with the munchkins.
In the little village.
So,
in the village because they've killed the Wicked Queen.
Yeah.
The Wicked Queen in like a tower. I also thought the film was a lot like The Fifth Element. I love The Fifth Element. It's like one of my all-time favourite movies. Did you not think that the female lead having to discover that love is more powerful than everything in the whole entire world was utter bull?
I haven't seen The Fifth Element in quite a number of years, and I don't.
But you have to know what I'm talking about. Like, so Lilu is on like a pod on like the big massive ship, and she's learning English, and she learns like what love is, and she learns what war is, and then she gets absolutely traumatized by learning how evil humans can be and how they treat each other, and she then has a point where she can save humanity, and she says to Bruce Willis, like, what's the point? Because all you do is destroy each other. And Bruce Willis is like, love, like, because we can love. And then she's like, oh, love, I'm not allowed to love. And then he's like, oh, but you can love. And then she's like, okay. And then she saves the world. This was totally like that. This is totally like that, because at the end, when Steve Crispine decides to go and, like, use himself as, like, a martyr for saving everyone. Is that the right word?
Yep.
Yeah?
He gets fridged.
So he goes off. He gets absolutely, like, destroyed.
Fridged.
She's, like, lying there under, like, some sheets of metal, screaming. And then she gets up and bad guy's like, yeah, there's no point in saving humans, blah, blah. And then she's like, love. And then, boom, Earth is saved. All the humans are saved. Bad guy's dead. And I was like, this is Fifth Element.
So you're now tuning into the Fifth Element podcast.
Just saying, people need to get some original ideas.
Well, I mean, I didn't make that comparison, but I haven't seen the Fifth Element in years, so...
God, Craig, get it watched. It's on Channel 5 all the time.
Yeah. Fifth, get it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so back to the film we're talking about.
I was comparing the two.
I'm sure it does sound like a valid comparison from
that's what ran through my head when I was watching it, and I was like, how am I watching The Fifth Element but it's Wonder Woman? Why do they keep making female leads decide that they can only save humanity because of love? Why do they keep doing that?
Yeah, Captain Planet.
Leave Captain Planet out of this.
I will not.
Leave Captain Planet.
So anyway, the heroine and her gang of plucky followers arrive at the Emerald City, and oh no, that's a different film.
Yeah, Tin Man Wants a Heart, or whatever. Yeah. So we've talked a bit about the story, and I think the story hangs together pretty well. I do think the ending needed work, and I would have liked a much more low-key ending, but I feel like there might have been...
God of mischief.
And I feel like there would have been a lot of pressure from the studio on about, we need this explosive finale, even though this is all people complain about in these films. So, but what do people know? What do the people watching this even know? So let's do it again. Let's have CGI flames everywhere and have some big invincible people hit each other finale.
Yeah. Well, you've already committed your money by the time you see that, so...
Yeah. And, there was potential for her just to be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe humanity are awful to each other. And because in Batman v Superman, as I've said, she decided to move away from humanity and stop helping them, like she said about 100 years ago. So that would track, that could have been that point where she decided, and that could be the reason she decided to do that.
Isn't it quite a Superman move as well to think, right, you can't be saved, I'm going to leave you to your own devices? Doesn't he tend to do that?
I think all superhumans
from time to time.
I think everyone has that crisis of faith now and again, and they just think, yeah, screw this, I can't help anybody, see you later, and then they leave and never come back. Yeah. Or they do come back, but yeah, they come to their senses eventually. But so there has to be some kind of trigger point for her to make that decision, although that assumes that you follow her really crappy character arc in Batman v Superman, which you don't have to. This is a very different person to what you see in this film, as in she's quite positive, whereas in Batman v Superman
that's because we've gone back about 80 years, right? Or
yeah, about 100 years.
100 years.
Yeah, and I liked that positivity. It reminded me a lot of the Christopher Reeve Superman, in some ways. And there's a couple of scenes that are lifted right from there as a homage. The deflecting of the bullet in the alleyway is almost the same as when he catches the bullet in the alleyway in the first Superman movie, and just the kind of ways where she's a bit goofy, just kind of running around and like, oh baby, wow, and that's the facade that Clark Kent puts on, but
glasses as a disguise.
But it's not a facade. It's literally because she's come from an island where she was made of clay and there are no babies because. Yeah.
No, I mean that's what I mean. For Superman,
don't need guys.
For Superman, it's a facade. For her, it's entirely genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not good at blending in. That's the problem, at least initially. But I thought the story hung together pretty well. I liked the stuff in Themyscira, the island. I liked the kind of the way they built up the culture there. It was an interesting collection of people, the kind of warrior side of things, and I kind of appreciated that they kind of left gender out of that. They were all just warriors. That was it. That was what they were defined by. It might have been equally shallow, but at least it wasn't on the island.
Yeah.
And they were all united in their funny accents.
Yeah, their accents were wacky.
Well, I actually quite like that as well. I mean, we've got so many kind of American accent heroes that it's good to see, she's exotic, and
some of them lost it a few times, and that just made it a bit strange. But
but she didn't, because she spoke in her native accent. So
yeah,
and it worked. It made her seem like she's from pretty far away, and she's not of this world, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so that in itself is pretty unique. That an Israeli lead can be so important and front and centre in a big film like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that. So on to the characters themselves. Like, what did you think of Diana as a character? Like, I really liked her naivety, and I liked the sort of journey that she undertook from sort of realising that maybe Ares isn't behind everything, because that is established, but not as well established as it could have been. I think that the way she learns how humanity works and the growth of her relationship with Steve works really well. I think her character arc was really good, and I found her really endearing as well as a lead.
I think that the only two interesting characters, are the characters that were really given any time to kind of be fleshed out, were Diana and Steve Trev. I think the rest of them were given fairly short shrift, and I think that you get the impression, you see the photograph that of her and the gang from the previous film, and you get this impression of a kind of close-knit group that had gone in, infiltrated,
really banded together,
carried out their mission, and they get such little development and screen time, really. And I know that
they do try to give them their own wee moments, when Diana goes away on a horse to go somewhere else, and Spud and the Native American guy are hanging out together.
Spud and Tonto.
I'm just but it's not enough, and they don't really do that much with them.
Yeah, they do get a little bit, but it feels pretty short shrift, and that they just get one beat each, and then that's them. I just don't feel like they were developed enough, and that the film could have been the same without that gang even being there.
I didn't really like the gang at all. I didn't really like how he goes and tries to pick them up. I thought it was supposed to be, I think the movie tried to make it quite funny when they went to go and get all the people, and I was a bit I just don't see how this is going to be necessary. And I didn't really like the token Scottish guy, and I feel like they never even gave him a script. I feel like they just said to him, say things that you think Scottish people say walking down the street. And he just comes out with loads of Scottish patter that's if you're ever teaching anyone a Scottish word, you'll say one of those sentences. Do you know what I mean? Just because. I just didn't, I couldn't take him seriously, and he's supposed to be a serious character, because he has a moment where we're told he's this amazing marksman, and then one of the guys is oh, we can't always be that person all the time, and then you find out he's because he has that nightmare and stuff,
PTSD.
And he goes totally mental. He's got major PTSD, and he's really suffering. And for a 12A, for hinting at all of this, I thought it was pretty heavy, pretty heavy going, because people are gonna be what is that? His character looks odd, and children will probably laugh at the scene where he's screaming and going mental, because they're not going to understand it. But it's actually quite dark. It's really hinting at really awful sides of war that they never really take any further, maybe because it's 12A and also the film's not about him, but it's why have that at all? Why did we need to have that in the movie?
I just don't feel like there was enough there to justify having the gang. It felt like we were going to get a kind of, caper out of them, but then they just didn't do enough, or weren't involved enough to really justify being there.
Well, they would never invest all this time in them, because they all die.
What? That's not true.
Well, they're all dead. Like, she's 100 years later. She's the exact same. Steve's already just gone and killed himself.
Everyone eventually dies.
Yeah.
So old age claims them. Yeah.
Well, they're not superheroes, so how can they possibly be existing? Why would they invest all that time when they can't ever be in the follow-up movies? Do you know what I mean?
I actually liked her, how she had her own band of howling commandos, but I do think they are they're very quickly established and they're just kind of there. But I also felt like it gave it a little bit of scope. So what you've got is the PTSD, and they established that, and that was well done. And I do think it was quite dark as well. But then you had the point where he sang, and sang terribly, but he sang, and it was mentioned that he hadn't sang in years. So it's supposed to...
Yeah, but why do you need to even have that? I was waiting on Wonder Woman kicking ass, and I'm watching this.
I think it's supposed to show that she's quite an inspiring presence to those around her, because she's very heroic and very old-fashioned heroic as well, and the fact is she's able to...
She's 100 years old.
Yeah, she's able to inspire people to... to be better or to overcome things.
Is he singing though because she just saved all their asses back in the trenches?
If you think about it, if you think back to that conversation she has with Steve about we're not getting anywhere here. That getting over that trench is not possible. We can't get any further than we've already got, and then they do. And these are
because she's like invincible.
Yeah, but we've
already seen at the start that she can like heal herself. We don't really know why, but at the start she gets like hurt by like a sword or a stray bullet or something like that, and then they take off the bandage and she doesn't have a cut anymore, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's amazing!" It's like because she's Wolverine.
But these people have been desperately needing a victory because they haven't seen one in so long, and then they get one, and there's that catharsis to it. It's, wow, we did it. We're actually making progress here, and it's all because of Wonder Woman.
They didn't do it. She did it.
Well, they backed her up. They bravely launched themselves into the fray. They participated.
She allowed
in the fight.
them to feel good about themselves by giving them an opportunity to prove their worth, because it is, what is it, Dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. Come on.
And isn't that what heroes do?
But then it's all for naught because the whole village just gets bombed out anyway.
Yeah. Well, that was... And I think that actually hit... that actually lands. It does it well because, we see her reaction to this little quaint village, and you can tell that she really, really loves it. It's this side of humanity she's never seen, and then it gets wiped out, and then it fills her with kind of righteous anger. And I thought that worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I do think she was a good character, and I did enjoy everything that she did. But as I said, I think
let down by her.
I think that the rest of the film and the rest of the way the characters were treated just didn't really develop enough. So she did well, and I think Chris Pine, his character was good as well. But I just feel like the rest of it was a bit lacking.
Yeah, and the rest of the characters, they're definitely supporting players, and I was okay with them only getting a little part each. The central relationship is her relationship with Steve, and that is very well done. It's very well developed, and it's and the two actors, they've got really good chemistry as well. They bounce off each other really well, and I think having Chris Pine as the token love interest is quite an interesting one, because if you you could have easily flipped the script on this film and have him be a heroic World War I guy with a token female sidekick kind of thing, and he was the token male sidekick in a lot of ways. So I liked that.
Yeah.
And it was the idea of, hey, you men have been experiencing this empowerment fantasy for forever, and now it's our turn, and we're putting a famous leading man in the supporting role. It was good.
I have seen a few complaints though that the story is kind of his story. He drags her along, and she kind of goes along with his mission, and
because he doesn't listen to her.
He's got all the drive, and she's kind of tagging along.
He's the catalyst for it, but I still feel like it is completely her story.
It's
her choices
not completely her story. You can't say it's completely her story when you know that a lot of the story is driven by him.
Yeah, in terms of getting her from A to B, but her purpose is clear, her perspective is clear. He's just
her purpose her purpose is defined at start when she says, take me to Ares, and then he misleads her and takes her to a whole bunch of other places.
Well, he doesn't mislead her. He just, he doesn't know that Ares isn't going to be there.
So we're right in saying that he is it's his story for a large part.
I think in terms of the mechanics of
even him dying at the end, and him being the sole purpose that Wonder Woman even finds like validation in saving humanity, because she's like declaring, okay, I'll save Earth because of love. It's all because of him. They've brought it all back to a guy.
But even that sacrifice was really earnest as well, because he tells her that he wants to do this. He wants to, stop this problem so that she can save the world. He's he's doing it so that she won't, because he knows that she probably would.
She'd survive it though.
Well, not necessarily. We don't know.
She would. She walks into the village that's been gassed and she's fine. She can go underwater for a long amount of time and not die. She can heal herself. Like, how do you know that she wouldn't have survived if she'd taken that out, if she'd gone and done it herself?
How do you know that she definitely would, though?
A guy took an opportunity from the woman to be a hero.
See, I don't really see it like that. I mean, Angus, what do you think?
I appreciate that normally the norm is that the male hero has to witness the loss of his female love interest to spur him on to do greater things and kind of overcome the big bad at the end. So it's interesting that they flipped it like that, but I do think it's a bit too black and white. It's a bit too binary that they've, just turning things on their head like that doesn't necessarily make a big difference, And I think he did have a lot of agency, and he did kind of drive a lot of what happened in the film. I would have liked to have seen, there are moments where Diana gets to take the lead, and she definitely does, and definitely leads the way, definitely takes charge, leads the attacks, that sort of thing, and obviously displays her immense power at the end. But I still feel that it would have been good for her to do a lot more of have a lot more of the impetus that Steve Trevor gets. And I don't know if it's just because this film demands a kind of feminist eye and criticism of it or not. Would we be talking about it in the same way if
just
it was
because she's female? It's like it has to become feminist.
Yeah, well, I know. So it's difficult. It's difficult to think about it because so much of it is kind of by the numbers superhero movie, but with the genders flipped here and there.
And I think the gender flip is about as far as it goes. I mean, what I actually expected going in was there was going to be 2 hours of women are amazing and men are horrible, and then that's not the way to promote positive representation. I think the idea that,
Why did you go in thinking that?
Because I didn't expect the writing to be...
No, but what made you think that that's what the movie's, agenda would be?
Because I didn't expect the writing to be smart enough to not do that. To be perfectly honest, I expected it to be very cynical. I expected it to be kind of this trying to empower by depowering, and that's not the way to do it. That's going to be... I mean, that's been happening in male-fronted films for decades. Just look at Transformers, for instance. It's those are not empowering films for women at all, I would imagine. But this film, everyone is kind of treated
well, that's because Transformers is about robots.
Well, some of the time, yeah.
No, I would agree that a positive of the film is that there isn't too much of that, and that yes, she's allowed to just get on with things, and she's a superhero. It doesn't matter if she's a male superhero or a female superhero. She's just a superhero, and that's the way I would want to see it.
Everybody's treated as an equal. It could have been. I suppose they cheated slightly by having Steve be ahead of his time. He was. He was obviously quite inclusive. He didn't think about class. He didn't think about gender. He didn't think.
It's
about
because he's
else.
so in awe of her beauty that he's like, I'll do anything to be hanging out with her. That's how she gets any of the crew together, because the guy that she's speaking in French with, is it French or Spanish? She's speaking with him, and he's like, well, I'll go if you're going, because he finds her so attractive. That's how she rallies up her troops.
It's how she rallies that particular
not because of what her mission is because of what she looks like.
But Steve is driven by.
And
she's
not listened to. She's not listened to when she marches into that. When she's in the building with Steve and she's got her new outfits on, and he goes in to speak to the head honchos, and then she's like at the door, and then everyone's like, "Oh, you're a woman. You're not allowed to be in here." And then she tries to speak to them, and they don't listen. Because she's a woman.
Yeah, but I think that's a fair kind of representation of the time.
Yeah.
If she'd wandered in and everyone had been all ears, it would have been like...
Well, yeah, no, and that's fine. And I quite liked that scene where she afterwards is like, why won't you stand up for yourself? Why won't you do this?
Yeah.
Why do you think that your job only extends to this? But you can't say, like, your point was that, I don't know,
I think
something else.
I think that the positive side of that is that she isn't put off by people's reactions to her like that. She doesn't, just because they won't listen to her doesn't mean she's not going to go and lead the way and be a hero. So that is one positive to.
Yeah.
You do have to portray it as the men of that time did not listen to women.
Yeah.
Didn't, they mentioned about not having the vote and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like, well, sod you, I'm going to go and do it anyway.
Do you even know what a vote is?
And Chris Pine was completely focused on the war. It was. I mean, he wasn't really bothered about her gender at all. All he saw was someone that could, help him. And when you see,
I don't know if that's true. Think of what they're like in the boat.
Well, when he forces himself, when he proves that he's being honest by putting his hand in the lasso to, so that he has to tell the truth. And he was like, "Look, we're going to do this. I'm going anyway. It's the right thing to do. Blah blah blah. We're probably going to die. This is a really terrible idea." And I like how he how the honesty comes out, and he's forced to kind of confront that, but he still does it. But at no point does he think, what's going on with this, this woman who's helping me?
Because he's so enchanted by her.
Oh, he definitely is, yeah. And he's also just a decent guy as well.
Oh, I think he becomes a decent guy.
Good old Captain Kirk.
He definitely initially goes along with her because of her looks, not because of what she believes in.
But there's also the fact that he needs off the island, and she offered them the chance to get off the island.
Because he doesn't believe what she is saying, at all.
At least he comes to respect her for who she is and what she can do.
That's because she has to prove herself.
But
she has to prove herself to not be making up. It's like you can't just believe her.
He's also a man of the time who thinks of soldiers as men and not people.
See, in Thor, does Natalie Portman just believe that he's Thor straight away? She doesn't, does she? Or does she? She thinks she's mental.
Well, I think the difference is when Natalie Portman meets Thor, he's essentially just a guy. He's an incredibly well built guy, but he's a guy. And whereas he's on a magical island where
and he still doesn't believe her. Yeah, and he still doesn't believe her.
Well, it's one of those. If you're encountered with things that you don't understand, you'll try and rationalise them in some other way. But eventually, he just has to accept that. Okay, there's all this magical stuff. And,
that's because she had to prove it to him.
Yeah, just like anybody would have had to prove it to anyone else.
Should have believed. Should have believed.
Blind faith.
Yeah.
But no, I liked the Steve Trevor character. I think I liked it. He was a decent guy. He was morally upright. He believed in what he was doing. He really was sick of the war. He was tired. Like as you said, he always looks tired, and that definitely comes across. The fact that he's been at this for a long time and he's fed up.
But I don't mean
wants it to end.
I don't mean Steve Trevor looks tired. I mean Chris Pine looks tired.
Which translates well to the character.
There's a difference. There's definitely a difference.
Where does Chris Pine end and Steve Trevor begin?
Who knows?
But
charming number one.
The tiredness does work. He is tired. He's fed up of this conflict and he wants it over with, and he thinks he can do something to get it over with. And there's a nobility to that, and I think he's an interesting character.
Yeah, I think we should talk more about Wonder Woman.
Of course, yeah, it is her film, but and I think he's her window into humanity, and I suppose the fact that she gets like this decent, upright guy as her first experience of it is probably a good start,
But her first experience is of her island being attacked by men with guns.
Yeah. Well, she meets Steve just before that.
Well,
and he tells her they're the bad guys.
She saves him.
Yeah. And then he says, they're the bad guys, I'm the good guy, and she just believes him.
She believes him.
Yeah.
And despite how he's dressed, he isn't like shot by an arrow or anything.
Yeah.
The rest of the Amazons don't come after him.
He's hiding behind a rock.
He is. And then he helps out on the beach, and that earns him some measure of trust.
Well,
Enough to be not killed, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought... Yeah, I had no issue with him as a character. I think Chris Pine does a good job. He's always Chris Pine, but he's a slight variation of Chris Pine, I think.
How much bullcrap is it that
Chris
when she goes to leave the island, that her mum comes in and is like, "You do know that you can't come back?" And I was like, "What?" So if she leaves, she can't ever come back. That was like the swiftest goodbye ever.
She's
from
changing the locks
to her parents. Like,
yeah. And I'm not sure whether the "you can't come back" was a more symbolic thing than...
No, it was "you can never return."
Yeah, but she wasn't stern about it. She wasn't like, if you leave, you're not coming back. It was more...
Maybe she meant from a kind of state of mind point of view.
Yeah, and the thing is, and she said that, she couldn't just sit idly by and watch things, and knowing that the world is completely falling to bits outside. So there's that kind of... Yeah, she has to do this, and she'd regret it.
Oh, yeah, because she believes it's her duty. So her duty is that they are... I thought the whole secrecy thing with her was done, like, not that well. Like, the whole trying to hide different aspects of her character, and it's like, oh, she can't know who she is, because the more she knows, like, the more danger she's in. I was like, just tell us. Just tell us what is going on.
Yeah, and I didn't mind that, actually, because because the way it was handled was reasonably organic. What you had characters that both knew what they were talking about something. So they didn't have to say, she can't know that she is like a god, because they both know that, so they don't need to say it. Because normally in these kinds of things they play the pronoun game. She can't know about him. It's like, who's he? And things like that. But the way they handled it was like two people that knew exactly what was going on were having a chat, and that was fine. I think the payoff for that didn't quite work, and that's another issue, but at least the setup of it was okay, I thought. Yeah. But she was good, and it's one of those things that makes Justice League more appealing because she's in it, and and it'll be interesting to see what happens with her and how she kind of deals with the team and how she deals with the modern day. Let's ignore her presence in Batman v Superman.
Yeah, but I think as soon as they get to Justice League, though, and then the boys are back in town, she's going to be pushed.
I can just see her
again.
being the kind of Captain America role of, I'm from a different time, I now have to kind of... Well, she's not going to have the kind of fish out of water like he does. But yeah, I can just see her having the same sort of position in the team.
But she's like, but it won't be like Captain America though, because she's been present in all of that time in the world.
That's what I just said.
Oh, sorry, I didn't listen.
I just feel that she's going to have the same kind of righteous position. Like they're both the kind of very good symbols on the team.
Yeah, and I mean, in the absence of Superman, I suppose maybe that's the right thing, because Batman's going to be this grim, presence, and she could be the lighten up. It's whatever. But we don't know what they're going to do with her as a character for Justice League. And I mean, that film is having a lot of problems at the moment with Zack Snyder stepping down as director for personal reasons, and Joss Whedon doing some reshoots. So that could be interesting. See how that all stitches together.
Yeah. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't really paid attention to any of it. So I'll just see what they release, and I might go see it if we're doing a podcast with it.
Well, you can pretty much guarantee we'll want to talk about this, these kinds of films on the podcast. So, I think we've talked about the action sequences quite heavily. Is there anything else you want to say on character? On any of the characters?
Maybe not on characters. I was going to say action sequences.
I would say just before we move on to characters, action sequences.
Wait, are we not going...
The characters...
We're not going on to action sequences, we've done that.
Edit, just before we move on. The baddies deserve the sort of 34 or 5 seconds I'm going to give them here. They're just fairly nondescript. We could do, they could be in any... They could be some, the bad kind of henchmen. They're obviously supposed to be these big bads that Diana thinks is one of them is Ares, and then it's, you get the reveal. We've already spoken about the kind of underwhelming armor-clad Thulis. But yeah, I feel like they were fine as kind of your standard German baddies in a war, but I don't know. I feel like they were a weak part of the film as well.
Could have been from anything.
Yeah, and I don't think we should say. Yeah, I just don't feel like there's much more to be said about them. They did what they were supposed to do, and that was about it.
I feel like they did less than they were supposed to do. I wanted to mention, did you say we've done the action sequences? We've talking about most the trench and stuff.
Yeah, well, we've done most of them. We
haven't spoken about like the slow motion use of like visuals and stuff. And
well, I thought the slow mo was quite overcooked. It was effective in some places. Mm-hmm. I think during the island brawl, it was quite well done.
Oh, I'd forgotten that there was slow mo on the island. So when
there's slow mo everywhere.
I only really remember it from the trench and from when she's like just kicking ass like at the very end, not with the bad guy.
I think it really worked in the trench part because it was it was an epic moment. But there were some parts where it's like, all right, great. You're just slowing down for the hell of it now. There was some. I think that I'm definitely in a minority here, but I really enjoyed the slow motion parts because I feel like a lot of movies like this always speed it up or it's really fast and you can't really appreciate everything. And I thought form and I just really enjoyed watching everything because it didn't look like CGI or anything. It looked like it was really her and kicking shit. And I really liked the slow-mo parts, and I know that people are saying it's been overdone, but I kind of enjoyed it. I liked them in parts. I think it was overused though, but I really did appreciate that the camera was allowed to run for a couple of seconds, to let you see what was going on. Mm-hmm. I hate rapid cutting because it just hides bad fight choreography. Yeah. That's all it does. But the fight choreography here is very good. Where the bit where she jumps through
I really enjoyed it.
The bit where she jumps through the window and just demolishes all the troops, effortlessly. That was brilliantly done. It wasn't quite a single take, but it was almost a single take. There was very few cuts.
Yeah, there. So for this one, I felt like it was quite different to other superhero movies in that it really allowed you to appreciate and enjoy. Maybe they did it a bit too much because that's obviously what most people are saying, but I definitely appreciated that they were giving you that time to really appreciate it. Yeah. And I also felt like, though, that they took far too long in really introducing her theme song. It felt like we were 30 minutes from the end when we were getting all of that.
But I thought the rest of the score was excellent. I thought it was a very well scored movie. I love movie scores.
Yeah, but I wanted to hear more of her theme that they've worked on.
Yeah, it was kind of building to that. I think it had to earn it, and I suppose it did when it was finally deployed. But one thing that made me wonder during the island action sequence where where the Germans attack, what happened to that ship that came through the fog barrier thing?
Yeah, it just never to be seen again.
Yeah, they just killed a bunch of people on the beach and then it was over. I understand that they dealt with all the people in the rowing boats, but there was a ship full of people. What happened to that?
Maybe they sunk them.
Maybe, but you don't see it.
Well, you don't need to. It's not important to the story.
At strategic points on it, and boom, down it went.
Yeah, possibly.
We don't need to know what happened to those guys because they're not the story.
Russell.
But another thing that struck me about the action sequences, and a few people have pointed this out to me as well, is what you get is, it's the male gaze, right? And I say this as a white male aged 18 to 30, where these kind of films are almost for me, or at least historically have been. The male gaze doesn't really exist in this film at least in terms of the action sequences.
I didn't think so either. I spoke to another girl though, and she said that she definitely felt like it was very much like for guys with like ass and everything like this. But
cheesecake.
To be honest, it's got a cheesecake. And
it's still pretty people. It's still just pretty people fighting, so they're always going to look good, aren't they?
I didn't get that at all. So I went in thinking.
You and Bremner ever been called pretty?
Anyway,
but they,
I went in thinking it was going to be a lot of tits and ass, right? And I was like, right, okay, whatever. It's an island for the females, but I thought that they actually didn't focus on that at all, and it's mostly that they're just incredibly good fighters and warriors, and I was thinking, like, if they were men, they'd all have their tops off, and they would all be showing off, like, all of their rippling pectorals. Like, it would just be what we'd be looking at. That's a quote from Hercules. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's
but I thought that they didn't really do that at all.
Yeah,
so
that
I'm
island
totally
sequence, it was there was nothing sexualized about it.
No, not at all.
It was just these people are incredibly skilled.
These are the women. They're skilled. They're toned. Yeah.
Just a load of badass chicks from the Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. That. Yeah, I appreciated that.
It's probably quite demeaning mentioning prostitutes in empowerment discussion.
Do you think that you could tell that it was a female director?
I don't think there was anything about it that suggested it was a female director, but I don't know what the signs of a female director are. I would just say it's competently directed, and the fact that it's a female is neither here nor
irrelevant,
there.
right? Yeah.
It is important because what you've got a female director being given the keys to one of the biggest films of the year, a massive budget, and she delivered something that looks great, as well. Has great fight choreography. The cinematography is amazing. It hits all the beats of what a competent superhero film should be. And the fact is, it's like it shows. Yeah, women can do the job too. By the way, and I hope that Patty Jenkins gets given all the opportunities after this, and I hope that other female directors are also given the opportunity to step up to the plate and take on a big film. Because
what do you mean a big film, or do you mean superhero movies? It
doesn't necessarily have to be a superhero film. A big franchise film, or even just a film, a relatively small film that can be acclaimed.
Right, but there are female directors though who are getting all of those opportunities anyway. I was only saying because it's a female lead for a superhero movie and a female director. Some people seem to be thinking that that's an important thing. I don't personally think that.
It's important because
I don't really care who the director is, to be honest. I just want to watch the movie and enjoy it.
It's important from an employment and representation point of view when it comes to these things, because if you look at the big blockbusters that are out every year, pretty much all of them are directed by men, the good ones and the bad ones. And I think that
I don't have any stats on that though, so I can't even weigh in on that. But all I know is that there are definitely female directors who have blockbusters every year.
Yeah, but it's still a really low number, and this, to use the World War I analogy, this film will push it over the top, or it should push it over the top, because
I think, it's probably a step in the right direction, but until there's more women making decisions at studios and, filling up those kind of executive roles and having more power in that sort of arena, I think it's, hopefully we're moving towards that and a bit more kind of equality there as well.
Yeah.
Rather than it being...
But you can't just meet a quota for quota's sake and be like, oh, we're going to have more females. It's like,
mentioned quotas.
They're good at...
And if you look at
doing the job.
If you look at Patty Jenkins, right, she has, she proved that was the right person for the job, because she made something that made the studio, or is making the studio, a lot of money, right? Well, that's ultimately... The quality of the film is irrelevant in that sense, as in all the studios care about is, does it make money? And it did. And it still is. And people are talking about it, and people are enjoying it. And, so it's hitting both those benchmarks. So it's proving that, hey, it's not a financial risk to give a film to a woman, necessarily. Which is definitely it's a male-centric industry, it still is, and it will be for a long time. But things like this, showing competence, showing ability to deliver something that's liked by a lot of people, and and makes them money, makes a profit, that's going to be important. It's going to be, it will make people.
All sensible people know that women are perfectly capable of delivering these things.
I find your choice of words like really strange actually, because I'm like, would you use that word when describing a male director, or would you describe them as having to prove themselves as being competent? I don't. Well,
historically they don't. You see male directors who get given another go at something even though it flops. There's directors that have got sequels to their own films promising that they'll improve them because I don't know why. I don't know why they do that. If you look at The Mummy, for instance, The Mummy that came out, I won't go too much into detail, but it's terrible, right? And they gave that film.
I'm loving the memes from the new Mummy.
Yeah.
Love a little bit of Brendan Fraser.
And they gave that film to the no-hoper that helped ruin Into Darkness and and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and for some reason they considered it a good financial decision to give him $150 million and Tom Cruise for essentially a first-time director. And had that been Patty Jenkins as a first-time director, forget about it, And it's horrible to think that, but it is. There are so many examples of that where male directors are given that other chance. Bryan Singer with the X-Men movies, I
think it's a very interesting topic, and I feel like I definitely don't know enough because I never pay attention to directors.
You'll see that most of them are men.
Well, no, I get that because most of anything really is like men.
So I think that's a much larger discussion, and I think the proof will be what will possibly happen is there might be another big blockbuster movie that's given a female director that just happens to be crap, and it won't be because it's a female director. It'll be because the person they hired isn't very good, and that is not indicative of anything. It could you could hire anybody who's useless and get the same result. So it'd be good if. I think it'd be good if there's another success. Patty Jenkins does Wonder Woman 2. It's still a success. It still has the same impact. That's kind of what we're looking for here in terms of how to help put an end to that, I think.
Yes, they have just as much right to fail as men do.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's just... it's a male-centric industry, unfortunately, and the only way to stop that is by...
encouraging more females to become directors.
But when are they going to give a tentpole blockbuster to a transgender person? That's what I want to know.
Well, they kind of did that with Jupiter Ascending, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a transgender sibling couple. Well, yeah. So there. That has already happened. All right, that was a massive flop.
See, they've got just as much right to fail as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Everyone has the right to fail. Just gotta try.
And everyone has the right to a second chance, potentially, which is not something that women typically get in the film industry, unfortunately.
Well, again, I feel like maybe we could have like a specific podcast where we discuss things like this and we all do
gender
some
politics.
research. Because I feel like I definitely can't talk that much about it when I literally never pay attention.
Point Break, that's all I'm going to say.
Point Break is awesome. That's a female director, I know that much. But when I think of like my favourite directors, they're men.
It's argument over. Point Break.
Point Break.
The original.
Okay, so one of them.
Well, yeah, original and best.
Original, yeah.
The Punisher Warzone was directed by a woman, I believe.
The Heart Locker.
Save it, guys.
That's Bigelow, right?
But that's a different...
Heart Locker.
But it does bring us naturally on to the significance of this film in terms of, as we've talked about the kind of the behind the scenes thing, but what about in front of the camera? You've got a female led superhero film that's actually good for once. The other attempts have been shocking. Actually unwatchable dreck. The original Supergirl movie, crap. And it's not because it's a female superhero; it's just because it's crap. Catwoman, dreadful. Elektra, also dreadful. Yeah, these films are all terrible, and it's not because they're about women; it's because they're terrible.
It's just because they're Wonder Woman. Yeah.
So,
it's word of the day. I'm trying to use it as much as possible.
Yeah. And obviously, as a as a white male, aged between 18 and 30, I think it's my place to comment on this issue.
You don't want to move into the 24 to 34 bracket?
No.
Join
I'm
us.
18. But I think that representation is important because as a white male, I've got.
Wait, you're white.
Yes, I've just coloured myself on an official podcast. No, it's
Oh my God, Ryan!
But as a white male, I've got representation everywhere. You know, I can look to Spider-Man, I can look to Captain America, I can look to all sorts of things. There's representation everywhere for me, and there's very little for women, and there's very little for.
That's not true. That is not true.
No, I'm talking about specifically in the superhero genre.
Supergirl,
Hawkeye.
You've got Black Widow, Wonder Woman, Catwoman, Batgirl. You've got loads of them.
Yeah, but and while these characters are important, I'm talking about in the mainstream. You know, the comics have a very specific audience. The TV shows have a much smaller audience.
What's Halle Berry's character called in X-Men? Any of the X-Men, any of the female X-Men, they're massive.
Yeah,
but they're also not the focus.
X-Men have got and they are Fantastic Four. Well, that's like 25% whatever, but
yeah, let's hold that up as an example. That's a great idea. No.
Yeah, she's literally invisible in that movie.
We've been watching a lot of Arrested Development recently, so this is quite topical.
Yeah. So, but what I'm talking about is, you know, there's representation everywhere for me, right? And what you've got is, and a lot of people have been getting really excited about the fact that they have someone to look at, you know, on screen. You know, like young girls, etc., have a lot of have this icon to look at and be like, that's like me, you know. And it's I think it's important in that sense, and I'm glad that it was good, or I'm glad that.
But you're reducing everything down to gender, though. Like,
no, I'm reducing everything. I'm talking about representation. I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking, you know, it's like Kevin Smith said in the round table I was a part of. He was talking about how for his daughter, he would go and see Iron Man. He would go see Spider-Man with her, and she would go because she was excited that he was excited about them. But there was nothing up there for her. You know, she wasn't going to look at Mary Jane for inspiration or anything like that.
Or Miss Potts for be a secretary.
Yeah. So this but this film is, you know, it promotes positive representation. It gives people. I mean, I'm probably not saying it in the right way, but I think it does give people that haven't necessarily had a lot of representation, a lot of, you know, a big piece of representation.
Yeah, in the right way or something. Yeah.
Yeah, in the right way as well. Yeah, and it's all about that. Yeah, everybody has something to offer, and the Supergirl TV show is important for that reason as well. It has a much smaller audience than this film will ever have, but still, you know, people or young girls are starting to see these things and having things to look up to.
I don't know how many young girls watch Supergirl.
Well, I don't know the exact figures, but a lot. Okay. It is. It's one of those.
I definitely feel like it's the 30 to 40-year-old bracket that would watch Supergirl. Male, probably white.
Boom! Shout out to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, and Buffy was a good example of representation from way back, but it didn't really open the floodgates in the way that this film might.
What? You don't think that Buffy was like massive?
Oh, it was massive, but comparative to, you know, anything else, I mean, it was huge.
Definitely inspired loads of people.
If the Wonder Woman movie is going to be as much of a watershed moment as it's kind of being made out to be, not just here, but in a lot of other press. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
That's how we saw it. That's how we saw it. I definitely was on Facebook, and people who've seen it are definitely, like my sister, it's like loved it and was just like, it's great, blah blah blah, all of this positive stuff, and it's great because loads of girls are going to see it and whatever. But I just personally didn't enjoy it that much as a movie. I don't really care if it's a female or not. I literally just went and judged it as a movie.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what you're supposed to do. But if you look at, I'm just talking about a very primal child level. You know, I'm not just talking about that, but it's one thing that if you're, you know, as young kids, we obviously all looked up to superheroes or fictional characters, etc. And I think it's quite good that that young girls will be able to look to this film and, you know, get that confidence boost that kind of, look, I can do this too, you know, and rather than seeing all these male-led things. My point was finished.
Sorry, I was...
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Sorry, I zoned out. I don't know what you said. I'm sure I'll listen back though, and I'm sure it's like a really important.
Well, I mean, imagine you saw this. Imagine you saw this film when you were like 8 years old, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, and
I'd be horrified.
I'd be like, I know. I'd be like,
by the
oh
war
my god.
And, people getting their legs blown off.
I'd be more scared than when I saw Jurassic Park.
People with their faces all blown up and gas melting these gas.
It's pretty horrific. If you're 8 years old and you're seeing that,
and shot,
your parents are selfish.
So much violence.
Yeah.
Anyway, if I saw it, I'd probably be like, yes, women on screen.
I mean, I'd definitely be like, whoa, she's badass, but I definitely felt like that, and I'm not 8 years old, and I was like, whoa, she's pretty badass. I don't need to be, I know what you're saying though, but like, literally, if you take an 8-year-old to see Wonder Woman, you're very selfish.
I think if people find it empowering or if it's, a step in the right direction, good.
Good, definitely, yeah.
And I think
it's just...
And
I saw where it could have been better.
Yeah, and you could say that about pretty much any film in this genre, no matter who, or in any genre really, but no matter who is starring in it, who's directing it, who the film's about, etc. I think it's obviously it could do with some improvement, but I think that the fact that it's actually
firstly by making the action get to you a little bit sooner and not having Harry Potter's like Uncle Cray there being like a bad guy, because it just doesn't work. Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's good. That's all I'm saying. I'm glad that it's good, and I'm glad that someone might look at it and see themselves up there. That's
yeah, for it to be an inspiration. But let's make the next one better. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Let's always make it better. And, and let's see how Marvel do with Captain Marvel when they eventually get around to it.
Oh God, Captain Marvel who was that? Who was that when we saw this live? Was that the one? Was that the lassie?
What lassie?
Was it the lassie though? Because they look really boring.
What are you talking about?
Whoever that, like, do you know when we went to see Thor and Loki and all that live in Glasgow?
Black Widow.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't Captain Marvel like the woman roller skating around? Is that who we're talking about?
I don't know if she was roller skating. She was.
I feel like she was roller skating. She's not like roller
she flies and stuff.
Shout out to Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Holla.
No, she flies and stuff.
Yeah, she looks boring.
And it's Brie Larson that's playing the role. Yeah.
The thing is though, right, they're setting it up for failing because nobody has given any craps for Captain Marvel up until they have now realised that they've cycled through 15 characters and they want to pull out another one. If she was that important, she would have been the first one that they spoke about.
Yeah, but Ant-Man though.
I haven't seen Ant-Man.
Catherine said.
How would I? Anyway, I haven't seen Ant-Man.
Yeah, but, well, it's just a character they're getting around to doing. They tried with Iron Man first and went on.
I swear to God, like, we're going to get to a point where there's like, they've made 500 of these and no one will give any craps, and that I feel like I'm already there right now. And we're on 15 or something like that.
Well, all I'm saying
Are you looking forward to it, Craig?
Am I looking forward to what specific? Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel.
Yes, I am. Like most of these characters, I quite like the character, and I'll be interested to see how that works out. And I do think that DC have beaten Marvel to the punch on this one thing.
What one thing?
The fact that they got a female-led superhero movie.
Oh my
out before they
God!
did.
Who cares?
Black Panther. That's what I'm all about.
I love Black Panther.
Well, I think lots of people care. There's this kind of eternal measuring contest between Marvel and DC about who first and who steals from
and we
who.
have proven it right because we did start off by comparing them both.
Well, it's impossible
Marvel,
not to.
Marvel have had females in lead roles in a lot of their movies. And wait,
go on.
What universe is X-Men?
Well,
Its own.
Yeah.
Right. So wait, no, is it though?
Yes.
In the movies, yeah.
But in the comic world?
No.
Is it Marvel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it actually Marvel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Well, all of the X-Men Marvel movies have got... I should know that because I've got posters with like massive Marvel on them across X-Men faces. They've always had main lead females.
They've always had men lead females.
Main
Main
female leads. Main female
females.
Well, they've not really.
This is how tired I am.
Magneta and Wolverina.
It's 10 o'clock at night. I've been at work all day. I'm pretty knackered. I can't make sentences.
The lead in most of the X-Men movies is Hugh Jackman.
He transcends gender.
He does. Arguably, Jennifer Lawrence gets a lot to do as Mystique, but she's still not the lead in any.
Halle Berry.
She's not the lead in any.
She's in all of them.
She's maybe in them, but what is tell me one thing that she does.
She flies. She creates worlds.
Makes a hell of a cup of coffee.
Manages to flub a line.
Does she actually?
What happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning?
I love that you know that. I don't really. I think
it's infamous because it was supposed to be kind of matter of fact, but she delivers it with this kind of supposed to be epicness, but it doesn't work. But yeah, I think Storm is a really bad example for those X-Men movies because she doesn't do very much.
But she was also Catwoman, right?
This is a losing battle.
Wait a minute, is Catwoman? Wait a minute, is she the only person who's been in Marvel and DC?
No.
Who else has been in Marvel and DC?
That is an answer I don't know offhand.
Yes, take that, Craig.
Okay.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
I thought that you'd know things like this.
Well, technically Chris Evans has been in Marvel and DC because The Losers is a DC property.
It was?
Craig's back in form.
A film called The Losers. Ryan Reynolds,
God.
he's been in Marvel and DC.
Damn it, I feel like I knew that.
Yeah.
I feel like I knew that.
Green Deadpool.
And,
Ben Affleck.
and I feel like I knew that as well. Wait a minute, who's he in Marvel?
Daredevil.
Oh, yeah, but let's be honest, nobody wants to remember that.
No, nobody does. But yeah, it's a...
Not Daredevil.
Daredevil.
So yeah, representation. It's a good film for representation, I would say. That's all I'm saying. As a white male, 18 to 30, I think that's important.
Our studio audience can't tell if you're joking or not.
Our studio audience fell asleep / left long ago.
No, I'm talking about. I actually legit have studio audience member here participating. Can we get away from the audience?
Woo!
See, that wasn't me.
Yeah, I had it down that we should talk about the wider universe implications, but I think we covered that earlier.
And also I'm knackered, so I feel like I'm going to do what happened in Wonder Woman and nod off. Oh wait, that was Gus. I think that we've discussed a lot.
We have?
Too much for audiences to listen to, I think, because I think they'll be bored as fuck.
Oh!
I feel like Craig's gonna well cut it before this time.
Edit out all of your crazy theories about Catwoman.
About how Halle Berry is a female lead in the X-Men.
She's the best around.
Yeah. Cat Ratty Kid.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, as you've pointed out, we've discussed this at length, and thanks for not reading my review. That was great.
Yeah.
But Angus did read my review, so that was good.
Yeah.
I didn't, and it probably won't, to be honest.
Oh.
Wow.
Support the brand.
Solidarity of the brand, yeah. Right, so any final statements or thoughts that either of you have that you would like to share with the world on this film?
I feel like I've said this before, but this podcast has confused me as to whether I liked the movie or not.
That's my intention.
Because I definitely liked some scenes on visual levels, and I liked some parts of it, and I did enjoy that there was a woman on the screen for a long amount of time and she was awesome, but I do feel like the movie was let down in quite a few parts, like not even a few, in many areas actually. Like, I feel like it could have been much, much better, and even though I went in with quite low expectations, I was reading people's opinions that they'd really enjoyed it, so I expected it to be much better than it was, and I think was even more disappointed when I left when it was actually shit. So I think I've just answered one question. Yeah, enjoyed parts of it.
Stream of consciousness, cool.
Sorry.
I think it started strong with the fantasy setting, the funny accents, and then it was interesting to see a bit of World War One. Didn't really like a lot of the representation of it there, and then I thought it ended poorly with another beat 'em up boss battle. I think it's difficult to tell. I don't know if it's just cynical to think that people are being a bit more positive about this because of all of the sort of gender debate and all that kind of stuff. I'd prefer not to think of it like that, and if people are genuinely enjoying it for what it is, then great. I'm happy for people to enjoy this film and to really love it, and if it's
you give them your blessing.
If it's furthering the cause of women as lead actors and directors, brilliant. I personally didn't think it was as amazing as a lot of the rest of the criticism is saying.
Yeah, and also that weird animation part when they're telling the story was so awful. I like parts of it started off quite good, and then I was like, ugh, what is
Queen
this?
of the wrap up.
Sorry. I just realised that it's been in my head like this whole time, and I realised I didn't say anything about it, but that was not great.
You're going to be so disappointed when I edit it out.
Well, I'll be happy to know that I've said it in real life, so it's okay.
Yeah, I would edit it out, don't worry. I kind of agree that the film isn't this transcendental, amazing, piece of art that will stand the test of time. I know, it's a good word. But I think it's very good. I think it's a good example of a superhero movie. It's
by DC.
By anyone, by any standards. It's not it's not going to be as iconic as, say, the original Superman, or, I'm not going to say The Dark Knight, but everyone will say The Dark Knight, so it's not going to be as iconic as that. It's not, it's not going to wow people, or it probably won't stand the test of time as much as the first Spider-Man movie did. The first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, that is, that kind of movie, that made a massive impact, and I think it maybe does open doors for certain things, representation and things like that. But it's flawed.
Yeah, it'd be good.
It's flawed, but I think the good far outweighs the bad, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the characters. I thought some of the action was amazing, and I like Wonder Woman as this symbol of hope, because ultimately that's why I love superhero stuff. They're supposed to be inspiring, and she is inspiring, and it was great to watch, and it was great to see, and I liked the tone. I just liked it. Let's put it that way. Sum it up in 4 words. I just liked it. So yeah.
That's all.
And I know that you gave it an 8.5 out of 10 because I read your article.
Yes. And
that's far too high. That is far too high. Like 8.5. 8.5 really, Craig.
Well, if you write some reviews and then you can... you write some reviews.
Started the podcast with the fact that you gave this an 8.5.
And I stand by my opinion.
Oh, God.
You're welcome to it.
Yeah, you're welcome to it, and I think you can hang out with all the 14-year-old girls that love it.
Yeah, that's not what I meant by representation. So on that decidedly creepy note, I'm not going to be hanging around with 14-year-old girls. I'll go on the record saying that right now. It's not going to happen. So I have nothing to talk about other than this film.
Right, that's enough.
Yeah,
I'm going away now.
We already know your age bracket.
Yeah.
18 to 30. Telling you. White male, 18 to 30.
Yeah, it doesn't sound creepier at all when you repeat it.
Yeah.
It sounds like a description of a serial killer.
I was actually just going to go straight out with pedo.
Oh.
Whoa. Which would I rather
edit
be?
That.
Do not edit this. This is the gold that we've all been waiting for tonight, so please keep it in.
Yes.
Is what she said.
Well.
Oh, gross. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you to thank you to you, members of the JLS, the Justice League of Scotland.
JLS? Oh my god.
No.
Our studio audience member is rolling about.
Writhing in pain?
Yeah. Yeah, not with laughter. Sorry.
Good. Okay, that's fine. He's representing the entire listener base of this podcast.
I just want to say a massive thank you to Kieran for sitting beside me on the sofa all night listening to
standing
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to say thanks again to Paul for your continued support.
Listener Paul.
Yeah, and if you can think of any other quotes of mine that you want on a t-shirt, please let me know.
You can find them in the Kneel Before Blog store.
I'm actually going to be working on that, Craig, so...
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh dear. That's probably going to cost us money. Also, I'd like to thank Empire Magazine for the free advertising.
Yes, which, as social media manager, I will very soon be putting up on our Facebook page.
And Empire, if you're listening, our legal team will be in touch.
I won't tell you that that's me. Because...
Once they've dealt with Fox.
Once they've dealt with Fox.
Yeah, it's good. I actually think it shows how good we are if we're getting legal things.
If we're getting legal troubles. Yeah.
Lawsuits.
Yeah. means we're big enough to bother about, right?
Why do you think I moved house? To avoid all the lawsuits. Anyway, right.
Yes.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up. So, thank you, Justice League.
Gracias.
I don't want to be part of this Justice League because I don't really like it that much.
Oh, great.
Can I be something else?
You can be the villain.
No, that's worse.
Well,
in the Avengers.
The Avengers. The Expendables.
Can we just say bye? Like,
I'm trying.
Well, goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye. That was our discussion of Wonder Woman. Thanks to YouTuber nstens1117 for the supplied music. As always, if you like what you heard, then please subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or any major podcasting app. We hope you'll join us on the next Kneel Before Pod.
For your rights and the old red, white, and blue. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. Now the world is ready for you and the wonders you can do. Make a hawking dove, stop a war with love, make a liar tell it true. Wonder Woman, get us out from under, Wonder Woman.